Well, the root causes are dysfunctional families, bad schools, drug-infested neighborhoods, lack of jobs that are accessible to kids. The whole culture and the whole infrastructure is such that if you and I started out in those neighborhoods, we would probably, the odds would be good that we would be involved in all of this that we're talking about.
I'm Janice Jackson. I am the CEO of the Chicago Public Schools. I'm Janice Jackson. What would you like to tell me, Gary MacDougal?
Well, first of all, Janice, you shouldn't see charter schools and efforts to bring other schools into these neighborhoods so the kids had a real choice of a quality school. You should not be not that.
You should not be against it.
You should encourage it because
so as an aside,
we're talking about the kids. We're not talking about union.
Charter schools would be good because why?
Because kids have a choice and the charter schools do better.
Okay, so free to choose.
Free to choose. There you go.
Well, we can find it another time.
But
free to choose.
Secondly,
so choice is good because just stay on that. Why does choice in the economic? Because you got like a Harvard MBA, and you know some people who got Booth Chicago MBAs. Why is choice? Give me that magic word. What does choice mean?
Well, it means you got a free market. It means the consumer will go where they think they will get the best result.
And so they could go to a charter school. They could go to a traditional neighborhood school. They might be able to go to a magnet school, a Catholic school. We got multiple schools doing what? What is that?
Competing.
Competition is good. In your article, you say silos.
Yes.
They're not talking to each other. They're not connected.
We've got the workforce board from the Fed. We've got HUD over here. We've got foster care system.
So Rom, like appoint one person, that CEO type who brings it all together, right?
Yep.
Or Governor Rauner, you appoint one person. So he is helping them get off the bad stuff, the illegitimate. $15 an hour, that comes to like, $30,000. That's pretty good. They'll take that. They don't want the $100,000.
I've interviewed
because they'll live then.
Gang members, drug dealers, and I have asked that question. And I used to be a director of UPS, and they are eager to get a job sorting packages at UPS.
Okay.
This won't apply to everybody.
We got 30 seconds left. I give you the 30 seconds.
Well, we should be embarrassed to have elected leadership in this state, in this city, that can do something. The money is there, the will is there. If we just get those silos together and we prioritize and focus on moving these young people out of the situations they're in and into jobs. And this can be done. It's not rocket science. It's similar to what we did in the governor's task force.
We're out of time. So you're watching Public Affairs. Berkowitz is my name, and politics is our game. And we will be doing lots of politics and public policy this evening because we have as our guest Gary MacDougal. Gary is known for a number of things. He's a former McKinsey partner. He was a CEO for 17 years at Mark Controls. He, 5,000 employees, Fortune 1000 company, 650. The main thing is, he has been focusing in more than the last 6 months on the violence problem in Chicago, the homicides, the shootings, and what we do about it, and do we have a strategic plan to deal with it, and if we don't, what should it be? So as far as I know, nobody's been really studying this. Everybody would say the mayor should have a strategic plan, or the police chief, Eddie Johnson, should have a strategic plan. Gary MacDougal, is it your sense that Mayor Rahm Emanuel has a strategic plan to reduce the violence, the shootings, the homicides in Chicago?
He's trying, but he's got a very narrow focus. He is focusing on shot spotter, how to catch the folks.
Shot spotter.
Right.
It's S-H-O-T, S-P-O-T-T-E, just so we know. Shot spotter, that's a technology that does what?
It enables the police to focus on where the shots are occurring and catch the violators quicker.
Real time.
Real time.
So this is supposed to be somebody sitting there. There are sensors in Inglewood, in Chatham, on the west, that's south side, but also on the west side, where these things are happening the most. Where these 650 homicides, is that what we had? No, we had more. Like in 2016, we had 762.
Right. It's inexcusable how many we have. It's more than LA, and more than New York added together.
Right.
And they're both bigger
They're
cities.
like less than 300 each. We're at well, again, I know you put out the number 650, but now I'm looking at a number, maybe I got 2017, it was 650. That's what you're referring to. But in 2016, folks, it was 762. That was the year of the big spike.
Yeah. This is inexcusable. And these are human lives. These are people that you and I, if we were born in the South or the West Sides of Chicago, and we had bad schools, and we had no infrastructure, and we're single parents, dysfunctional parents, we ended up out in the street with the drugs. You and I could be one of those 650.
And what would we be doing? If I'm 17 years, I'm your typical 15, 16, 17-year-old living on the south side, the west side. I'm African American. Lucky if my family income's 20 or 30,000. What am I doing?
You don't have any choices. You can't get a job because you've got probably 6 months in prison for selling weed, as they say down there. And by the way, I've done a lot of interviews with drug dealers, with these folks.
This is part of your 6 months. You weren't just sitting back reading. You weren't talking just to professors. Who were you interviewing?
I was interviewing the folks in the neighborhood. I was
In the hood.
In the hood. And I was going to beat meetings. Beat meetings are where the police sit down with neighborhood residents, and they're supposed to be communicating and developing trust.
This is community policing that we hear. Rob
Yeah.
says we do community policing. Is
Yeah.
we get our beat people, the cops who are on the beat, sit down with the people in the community for like an hour?
It's an hour. In fact, it has to be defined that way because the police have to get back on the beat.
1 hour.
Yeah. But they sit across from, the two I've been to, they sit across from each other and they don't really communicate.
What do they say? Give us what do you recall?
Well, in
them
one
saying?
example, the police facilitator, a police woman, stood up and talked most of the time. And the residents sat there and weren't part of any kind of discussion. In another case, a community leader stood up and took all of the airtime. And then it was time to go home.
Seriously, there was not like dialogue back
No.
and forth,
So
like
what it
we're
is,
doing, like
it's
we're
like
doing.
things that so often happen. It's a great idea, but you've got
Yeah.
to implement it. If you run a company like I did, you've got to go in yourself and see what's really
Well, who
happening.
runs these meetings? Is somebody charged with running the meeting that you were at? Could you tell who was running it?
Well, there was a sort of a lead on the side of the police and a sort of a lead on the side of the community. But that didn't mean
No,
that it
like
was,
facilitator, no professional that says,
No.
That's kind of what you would need, right?
Exactly, you got it. In other words, it's a great idea
Yeah.
that isn't making a difference.
Okay.
And so as a result, the trust of the police department on the part of the communities is terrible. It's low. And in fact, the Urban Institute did a study interviewing thousands, and the results were profoundly disappointing.
Of course they don't trust them. I mean, look, there are some things we want to emphasize in this show. We're going to come back to this in detail, but so we don't forget. Maybe you want to tell us, what are the 5 things you want to emphasize?
Well, first of all, because the numbers are way out of control, worse than LA and New York, even though they are bigger cities, there's no excuse. We lack leadership.
No
We
excuse
lack a
for
plan
what?
For this horrible loss of life. This is almost 2 people a day. These are human lives.
Chicago has more homicides than New York City and Los Angeles combined.
That's right.
And another point that we want to emphasize here?
Well, we don't have leadership. We don't have anybody really looking systematically at the root causes, the dysfunctional families.
Who should that be? Who should the leader be?
There are a lot of resources, and there is a governor, and there is a mayor, and there's opportunity for a task force of the type that I
And there's a
headed
police
up.
chief. Shouldn't the police chief be a leader?
Well, the mayor should pick a police chief that can, in fact, move the needle. That
Did
can, in
he
fact,
make the wrong choice with Eddie Johnson? Because it was his choice. The police board, as they're supposed to, right, gave the mayor 3 choices. He didn't like any of them. And then he looked around, and I don't know. Eddie wasn't even looking for the job. Do you know how he got Eddie Johnson?
I heard this whole story, but I think what you-
Condensed version.
well,
Okay, we don't even have to go there. Is Eddie, in your view, I know I don't put you on the spot, is Eddie Johnson the right guy for the job?
I would say, based on the evidence, absolutely not.
Okay. Is Mayor Rahm Emanuel the right guy to be running the city of Chicago?
He's had plenty of chance to do something, and he has not done it. It is
Okay,
clear.
let me do ad lib. So Rahm, he's a plenty of chance he hasn't done it. Gary McCarthy, you know Gary? Is he the right guy for the job?
The odds look pretty good for him because he has, in fact, been trained under the masters. In New York, we had Ray Kelly and we had Bill Bratton. They made New York the safest big city.
They
of the
were
10 biggest.
leaders.
That's right. And they had
Ray
a
Kelly,
plan.
what's Bratton's first name?
Bill.
Bill Bratton.
And Bill went on out and turned the LA Police
What
Department
did they
around.
do in a nutshell? Because remember, New York was awful. Murders, the whole city was falling apart.
I had an apartment there, and I got mugged there right outside my apartment at
That
6
changed.
p.m.
You're not getting mugged too much lately, huh?
Not at all.
And the value of your
It's
apartment has gone up quite a bit, right?
by 7 times.
7 times.
So it's night and day.
So what did they do? What did Bratton do? What did Kelly do? How did they make a difference?
There's a lot involved, but they did regain
Condensed
the
version.
trust.
Yeah.
They regained the trust. There is no trust in the Chicago.
They
of the
regained the trust of the community and the police.
Right. That the police were there to help them.
And that community was minority. They could have been black,
Largely
Hispanic.
minority, yeah.
They got to trust the police.
And then there was the famous James Q. Wilson broken windows theory, where they prosecuted small crimes, realizing that set the tone and the culture for the city at large. So the squeegee window cleaners didn't accost you when you got off the bridge.
Why does that matter? Because somebody might say, well, look, the squeegee guy's not hurting anybody. The minor stuff that's going on, loitering in your apartment building, go after the rapists, the murderers, the hardcore. Somebody might say that. Why does what do we call it? Broken what?
It's called the broken windows theory.
Broken windows
It's
theory.
famous.
Because if there's a broken window, they
reader
fix
should
it.
Google it.
Okay.
I think it is a
Okay.
real key.
So why does
it
that
has
work?
to do with setting a culture
Okay.
that breaking crimes, we're not breaking laws, that we're not distinguishing between different types. We're setting a culture of lawfulness up. And the police are trusted so that unlike Chicago, which has a 17.5% clearance rate on homicides. I mean, think of this. And that's citywide.
That clearance rate means?
Clearance rate means that somebody is charged.
Charged, not even convicted.
No.
For those other 82.5%, there's a homicide and nobody's ever charged.
Exactly. This is unthinkable. It's despicable. It's wrong.
And when there's a shooting and there's no homicide, no fatality, what's the clearance rate of those shootings?
5%.
I thought it was 3.
It's well, we can argue between 3
3 to
and 5. The point
So basically,
is the same.
what's the point?
The point is that, particularly in the South and West Sides, which we should focus on in this discussion, where it's thought to be less than 10%, you can shoot somebody and kill them, and there's a 90% chance you won't even be charged.
You will get away with murder, as the saying is.
Absolutely.
Okay.
This is kind of an 90% opportunity to get away with murder. Why is this the case? The case is because, as we go back to, is the police department trusted? And the answer is no, because...
So what happens? So somebody sees somebody get killed, and they race over, and they call the police, and they say, I saw this, my name is such and such, let me, get in touch, we'll get this solved. That doesn't happen.
They don't do that because they are afraid, because there have been enough incidents. And by the way, most policemen are honest. They have families, they're doing their jobs the best they can. Some small percentage have done the whole department discredit. People are afraid to talk to the police because they're afraid of retaliation. Even the 911 numbers they're fearful of calling them because they could be traced back to who's calling.
So even if they don't leave their name.
That's right.
But do they tell them on 9/11, you don't have to name your name, we just want the information? Do they promote that?
They're working on that now. At the beat meetings, this was discussed.
They're starting to do this now in
Yeah,
Chicago.
Yeah.
So,
and the trust issue is not being addressed. There was an Urban Institute study that came out last year that showed that this massive distrust, 1,000 people were interviewed in this study. There's absolutely no doubt. And if there's not trust, you're not going to solve the problem. And he is not addressing that. We need, as citizens, new leadership. We need somebody who is going to take this problem and do what needs to be done. And it's already been done in LA, and it's already been done in New York, so it's not a mystery.
Well, just to be fair, try to be fair to folks. So I'm looking at these numbers. I think they're accurate. 2017, the number of homicides, as you know, went down to 650. So that's a 16% decrease from the 2016 spike. Still higher than 2015. Now I believe we're only in August, but I think my estimate, based on trajectory, they may go down at the end of 2018 to 530. That's a 20% decrease, 19%. We're almost getting down to where we were. Could Ram say, you know, I'm doing it, we're getting this solved?
He probably will say that, but it's like a drowning man. Whether you're drowning in 30 feet of water and it's down to 20, you're still drowning. So when your level is so high, the trend lines are mean little.
You could say it's getting better, but not better soon enough, not better enough. And the main problem, okay, so that's the leadership deficit. Go ahead.
Plus, he's not dealing with the root causes.
That's it. We've already said the mayor has no plan.
Yeah.
Ron, you can come on and tell us it's ShotSpotter, that's your plan. But he's not dealing, ShotSpotter does not deal with root causes because it just tells you who's getting shot, and then there's a shooting somewhere, you send a bunch of police, you hope you get there in time to catch them and prosecute them, but with a clearance rate of 18%. ShotSpotter's not working, right?
Right.
Okay, so the root causes are?
Well, the root causes are dysfunctional families, bad schools, drug-infested neighborhoods, lack of jobs that are accessible to kids. The whole culture and the whole infrastructure is such that if you and I started out in those neighborhoods, we would probably, the odds would be good that we would be involved in all of this that we're talking about.
I basically, as a 17-year-old, have two choices, right?
That's right.
What are they?
They are to try to get a job and try to do the right things. But
a good job, a legit job. So
yeah,
I didn't even count
legit.
that. That's the third choice. What are the
Okay.
two main choices I have that aren't legit?
Well, one is to get out and peddle drugs.
I'm a street entrepreneur.
Street entrepreneur.
You know, Adam Smith might like that
You've read
guy.
my Wall Street Journal article.
I
Street
did.
entrepreneur.
August 9th, folks, WSJ, Gary MacDougal. So I could become a street entrepreneur. I stand on the corner, I sell drugs, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's one choice, and that's maybe better. I don't know if we say that's better than staying home. And what's my other choice?
Well, you were thinking of the second choice. Tell me what it is.
Yeah, so I'm thinking, I thought you said this, is become a gang member. So the entrepreneur is outside the gang,
There's a big
isn't he?
overlap there. It's not
Oh,
as
so you
though
can
it's
be both.
either-
You're-
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's
Okay.
why I was a little
Okay, so
confused.
basically I have one choice. Become a street entrepreneur and also spend some of your time with the gang.
Exactly.
The gang is like your family. The gang is like the parent corporation over the street
It
entrepreneurs.
fills a need.
Yeah.
When you're a young person, you need to have
Some
a group.
guidance.
You need to identify with someone.
Where do I get a gun? Where do I get the drugs?
Right.
Your gang helps you with those things.
Right.
And if you've got a little problem, they're your family, because often maybe you got one parent, maybe you got none. Maybe both parents are working too hard, they're not there. Maybe you got one parent. And we're told, I think Heather McDonald said this, that Rahm didn't have the guts to say he said a lot of things recently that he's got criticism for. One major problem in our area, in the south side and the west side, is the black father is not around so much, right?
Well, that's true. The data shows that clearly.
So black families,
A lot of them are in prison.
and maybe we can come as to why. That datum is like very important, because fathers and mothers are important. I'm not saying not the father, but the mother is more present in the black family. So the missing in action would be the black dad, who may be in prison, maybe somewhere else. And guess what? I never asked you this. Your father important in your life?
Yes.
Okay. And in most lives, we remember, my mom was important. She was the one that sat there. She didn't have a high school degree, but she took me through, when I was in first grade, my old spelling book and my spelling words. Those things matter.
They sure do.
From the dad and from the mom. Go ahead, sorry.
Anyway, there are a lot of resources that are available in our system that we taxpayers.
So, but the root cause is dysfunctional families, very few role models, certainly very few dad role models.
Union-dominated schools.
That's important. Why
That's
is that
a big
important?
one. We could spend the whole session.
Well, let's
on
spend at least a minute. It's
schools.
so important.
Yeah.
When you say union-dominated schools, why is
Well,
that so important?
My wife and I picked out a school because we wanted to do something to help, and it was Wendell Phillips High School. And we spent.
And where's that?
Wendell Phillips is on the south side. It's in this area, in Grand Boulevard. And we spent half a day in the fall and half a day in the spring talking to the top kids about where they wanted to go to college. And we volunteered to pay their way through 4 years of college. And we got them interested as juniors, and then we helped them as seniors.
A full ride you're giving. All they have to do is get
That's
into the
all they have
4-year
to do.
college.
And we had somebody facilitating that we hired that keep track of these kids.
Yeah.
And there's some tough situations. Only the mother at home, and she has a drug problem. It is very, very tough. One valedictorian had 2 kids already.
So what? I
what
don't
I'm
get it.
saying-
What's the union? You said union-dominated public schools. What's the problem?
Let me go back to the point, though.
Okay, go ahead.
Our very first day, we went to talk to the guidance counselor because this would be a key person for our project. All she could talk to us about is her days to retirement and what was going to happen.
That's all she wanted to talk
She
about.
had zero interest in what we were doing.
And she was the counselor?
She was the counselor.
Supposed to counsel kids to go to college?
Yeah.
And that's why you wanted to see
Yeah.
what she was telling them?
Right. And the schools themselves, the teachers are not the best. They're the energy
So what do we
level-
do about it? I'm Rahm Emanuel.
Well, if I were Rahm Emanuel,
I'm Janice Jackson. I am the CEO of the Chicago Public Schools. I'm Janice Jackson. What would you like to tell me, Gary?
well, first of all, Janice, you shouldn't see charter schools and efforts to bring other schools into these neighborhoods so the kids had a real choice of a quality school.
You should
not be against that.
you should not be against it.
You should encourage it because
So as an
we're
aside,
talking about the kids. We're not talking about union.
charter schools would be good because why?
Because kids have a choice, and the charter schools do better.
Okay, so free to choose.
Free to
Got that
choose,
book
there
around
you go.
somewhere? Well, we
Yeah.
can find it another time.
But
Free to choose. So
secondly-
choice is good because just stay on that. Why does choice in the economic? Because you got like a Harvard MBA, and you know some people who got Booth Chicago MBAs. Why is choice? Give me that magic word. What does choice mean?
Well, it means you got a free market. It means the consumer will go where they think they will get the best result.
And so they could go to a charter school, they could go to a traditional neighborhood school, they might be able to go to a
Catholic
magnet school, a Catholic school. We got multiple schools doing what? What is that?
Competing. Competition.
Competition is good
Yeah.
because, like, I hear, like, Lori Lightfoot come on and explain, she wants a moratorium on charter schools. She says, got to get that traditional neighborhood school going. Don't drain students away. Boy, you don't have enough resources at that traditional neighborhood school.
Well, the resources should follow the kids. So
What do
they
we
shouldn't have
call
any
that
problem.
when there's one school and you either go to that school or you don't go anywhere? What is the economic phrase for that?
It's called a monopoly.
Monopoly.
And
So
that's not a
Lori,
good thing.
Lori, you find out about monopolies.
Lori needs to go down to these neighborhoods, needs to do what I did, and sit down and talk with these kids and put herself in the position of the kid, not as the politician trying to get money for the unions. And
Because she would know. She one day was maybe she was lucky, out of state, maybe in Ohio, somewhere else. She had a school, her mom was involved in it, it was important, it made a difference, and then she ended up going to University of Chicago Law School, which is good. But Lori, there were lots of choices along the way. But Paul Vallis, you would want to tell Paul that. You would think Paul would be a believer in charter schools because he started them in 1995. Do you think he is now?
No, you're talking about.
We're going to find out. He's coming on, so
We're
we'll find
talking
out.
about hypocrisy. We're talking about people who really don't care about the individual. They care about their
Okay.
holding their base together and so forth. So
Okay,
anyway,
so
the
that's important, the
We took
schools.
our time on the schools.
That's
is
important.
a session in and of itself.
Because with good schools, you learn how to read. You don't have 30%, as we think is the case now in CPS, fourth graders, black, Hispanic. 30% read at grade level, 70% don't. Kids don't know how to read. They're not getting much out of school. They drop out. They join a gang. They become a street entrepreneur. They can't get a job. Their family structure is falling apart. You see how one thing, if you learn how to read and you think and you learn how to write and do math, the basic skills, you could get a job, part-time job. You can learn the soft skills, right?
Yeah, and here
So-
we are.
Yeah.
In a time in our economy where there are more employers needing to fill jobs than there are unemployed people.
Okay, so I've squandered on the, I think we got like maybe 5 minutes left. So here's the key point I think you want to hit on. Two things. There are these lists of 1,800 and 3,000 people. And we don't have time to develop in detail. You have some caveats. But the main thing is Eddie Johnson, chief of police, said to me a year ago, he said, 1,800 people and a few other people. 1,800 on this list. That list has 80 to 90% of the people who will be the perps, the shooters, or the victims. And I just said to, well, why don't you just follow them around? Well, let's not hold this story. But say there is a list of 1,800. And then some people say there's a list of 3,000. These are people who are young gang members and so forth. But what we want to do for that list, we don't want to try to arrest everybody. What do we want to do to those people, whether it's 1,800, 3,000? But you only got 30 seconds. What should we do with that?
The lists have got, those lists have caused a lot of damage. And there are people on the bigger list that they have, which is much larger.
How do I go to that? Say there is a list of 1,800 and 3,000. Say it's not perfect. What would you like to do, Gary, with that list?
I would like to refine that list, first of all, because they're not using a lot of
So
the
make sure
data.
it's accurate and all that. Okay.
No, but there's a lot of places.
But say there are a lot of people there who are doing shooting, who are going to be victims. Can you do anything to help them? Help them. And how do we want to help them?
We help them by giving them a chance to get their GED. We connect them with the community college. We teach them the soft skills. We give them a mentor.
They may have mental health issues. We may be able to help them there.
There's money
They may
there.
have physical health issues, getting a job issues, getting an apartment.
And
You
money-
can help all these people.
That's right. We can,
And
but
then
we have to
Identify
get
them and then
help
bring them
them
in.
want
And
to help.
who's going to be doing all this? There are all sorts of resources, federal, state, city, right?
Yeah.
What do you call that? In your article, you say silos?
Yes.
They're
but
not talking to each
connected.
other. They're not
Yeah,
connected.
We've got the workforce board from the Fed. We've got HUD over here. We've got foster care system.
So
We've got the
Ron,
police.
like appoint one person, that CEO type who brings it all together, right?
Yep.
Or Governor Rauner, you appoint one person, or you two guys talk, or if it's a lady there sometime, the lady, and get this one person doing what Gary has said, right?
Exactly. And that hasn't happened.
And then that list starts getting smaller. Now some other people who are smaller crime people step up. They want help. You'll help them because what does it take to improve this person's life who's a small-time street entrepreneur? What does he have to make in terms of hourly wage?
Arnie Duncan is at $15 an hour. I think that's a pretty good
Because
number.
Arnie's organization is CRED,
Arnie's organization is called CRED, and he's taking kids off the street.
which stands for
Oh, gosh.
something about economic destiny. Okay,
Yeah. Okay, very good.
something. Okay, so you can create your own and get to your economic destiny.
And,
So
and
he's
have
helping
a
him get.
pipeline in his job.
So he is helping them get off the bad stuff, the illegitimate. $15 an hour, that comes to like 30,000. That's pretty good. They'll take that. They don't want the 100,000
I've interviewed
because they'll live then.
gang
okay?
members, drug dealers, and I have asked that question. And I used to be a director of UPS, and they are eager to get a job sorting packages at UPS.
Okay.
This won't apply to
We
everybody.
got 30 seconds
My guess
left.
would be
I give you the 30
70%.
seconds.
Well, should be embarrassed to have elected leadership in this state, in this city, that can do something. The money is there, the will is there. If we just get those silos together and we prioritize and focus on moving these young people out of the situations they're in and into jobs. And this can be done. It's not rocket science. It's similar to what we
Okay.
did in the governor's
We're
task
out
force.
of time, so it's like, okay, our major candidates, Rahm Emanuel, Gary McCarthy, Lori Lightfoot, Paul Vallis, Willie Wilson. Gary's just told you, step up, say this is the plan, steal it from him, he doesn't care. It's like taking candy from a baby. You could solve so much. And if somebody asks you what's your plan and it isn't what Gary just said, you're in big trouble. And you come back, if you don't come back next week and every week to public affairs, you'll be in big trouble.